Hey there, Stove Pals. Welcome to another exciting episode of Fiddling with the Big Dog, also known as BernieDawg. BernieDawg here to talk to you about the Svea 123 stove and how you can disassemble it. I'm imagining we're going to take this stove apart sometime down the line. We'll show you how to clean it up, how to make it ready to reassemble, and we'll reassemble it. Now, usually these stoves come with a little windshield, a little cup and stuff. This one is just an orphan I had laying on the shelf. It's been there for just decades. Well, that's not true, but a long time. I'm going to show you how to take it apart. First thing we want to look at. Okay, you got your stove. Let's make the easy stuff first. I have this pair of pliers. Here's what it looks like. You notice there's no jaws on those pliers. That's a nice handy tool to have when you're fettling. You take off the chain, and I just usually bend it a little bit and it pops right off. See, no problem, easy. And we put that aside. Next step, let's take off the burner bell. Just unscrew that puppy. Whoop, there it is. Now, if you do have problems with this burner bell, what you can sometimes do is take a straight, like a Phillips or a cross-point screwdriver, and put that through there, through both sides, and you can loosen it up that way without damaging it. Let's set that aside. The burner bell with the flame plate. Next thing we've got a fuel cap. That comes off real easy, hopefully. If not, if this doesn't come off really easily for you, then take a towel and a pair of pliers. Use the towel to pat it so you don't damage the brass, and wrap it around there, wrap it around the cap, and then you can unscrew it. You can also use rubber inner tube around it to unscrew it without damaging the knurling also. Or, hang on. If you do have problems with this, another tool you can get. This used to be a pair of like channel lock pliers, and what you can see I've done here is I've actually ground all the teeth off on the inside of the jaws. So now you can use it with a little padding, a little rubber or a towel, and you're not going to use those teeth that would normally be on the inside here. You're not going to use those teeth to damage anything. In my case, not a problem. This cap just unscrews. We'll take the cap off to the side. What are you left with? Well, you're left with the vaporizer and spindle. This is like the stove valve body. There's a nipple in the top here. We want to go ahead and take that nipple out next. How are you going to do that? Well, the best way to do this is to have a specialized tool for that purpose. Here's one. This is an NRV wrench for a non-return valve in another sort of stove altogether, but it also happens to have the right size to fit around the nipple. This is a specialized nipple wrench. You can see the opening there has been machined. It's machined to fit that nipple, and it'll fit right on there. That's nice too. But if you don't have any of those, what you do have is this key that came with the stove. And check this out. It's pretty slick why they did that like that. Look at that, goes right there, doesn't it? Not a problem. Just go ahead and unscrew that nipple and remove it from the vaporizer. Now inside here, I don't know if you can see it. Probably not. Inside here there's a needle. It's what we would call on a rack. It's a groove. Well, let's just take a look at it. Here's how we get that out. Go ahead and take your key and just open up the valve and look. Oh, here comes that here comes that needle. And there it is. And you can actually, once it's all the way out, you can lift it out. And look at that thing. Oh my gosh, isn't that something? That is really something, isn't it? Look at that. It's this long thing. It's got teeth down here. Now, those are gear teeth that engage on the teeth of the spindle. The spindle is this guy right here. Okay? So those teeth engage down in there. So now we've taken that out. Notice there's a needle. Honestly, For many years, well, for quite a few years, they made these stoves without these, and they're called 123s. This is a 123R, R meaning that you have this needle in there, a self-cleaning needle, so to speak. All right, you're down here, and really, you're better off without that. If you can get one of the old kind without the needle, man, that's the way to go. All right, next thing, what do we want to do? Well, next thing I do is I like to remove the spindle packing nut. That's what this is here. This is the spindle. This is a spindle packing nut. I like to remove that guy right there. I have a specialized brake fitting wrench, and it's a 10 millimeter. But get yourself a good tight-fitting 10 millimeter wrench. Or, if you're really desperate, you can use this, but I don't really like that very much. It will work. You can use your key. Or, failing that, get yourself a really high quality, and this is a high quality adjustable wrench, and you can remove that way. Personally, I like to use this because, as you can see with my brake fitting wrench, it fits tightly around the nut. So anyway, we loosen that up. And that's a little tight yet. There we go. And that guy will come out. There you are. Your spindle packing nut. It's all out. Set that aside. What's left? Not a whole lot. The only thing you got left at this point is the vaporizer connected to the tank and the spindle inside the vaporizer. Or sometimes I call this the valve stem, or I'll just call it all kinds of things. But there it is. So here what we want to do, go ahead and use your key and just crank that baby out. Ours is being stubborn. Now what's in here is it's packed with graphite. Tell you what I'm going to do, hang on. What I have here is my little jar of Croil. I used to have these in spray cans, but all the propellant in the spray can went away. What I do is I like to use a little Croil in here, lubricate the threads. You could hear how squeaky they were on the video, I bet. Let's see if that'll help our situation a little bit. Croil is like a WD-40. You could use that too. All right, here we go. This one's being a little stubborn. Now, what's holding us up in here is that there's a graphite packing. If you don't need to take this apart, you don't have to. I'm doing it because I'm supposed to show you all the parts. And you can see it's slowly working its way out here. What it's doing is it's pushing the graphite packing out as I unscrew it. Here we go. There we go. Just old and stubborn, needed that stuff, that Croil in there, the lubricant to get it to come out. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Gonna come out. There we go. Here it is. This is our spindle. You can see that there's the teeth that hook into our cleaning needle right there. These are the teeth that actually go into thread into the vaporizer. Here is the graphite packing. This, our packing nut, will squish this packing against, and I'm going to show you this now, watch, here we go, the graphite packing sliding off the shaft, there it is, and there's this little metal ring. Now the little metal ring is flat on this side, but indented or sort of dished out on the other side. So the dish should go to the graphite. The flat should go to the threads over here. So this comes off. Try to treat it nicely so that you can reuse it. If you don't, you're going to have to get a new one if it breaks. This one's not going to make it, I don't think. Which is okay. I happen to have another one ready to go. So there, that came off. Here's our little ring. And there's the spindle. Now we're down to the last part. How do we get this out of the tank? And why do we want to? Well, you don't have to. Once again, it's like you probably don't need to take the spindle out, but sometimes what can happen is there's a wick inside it that drops down into the tank. The purpose of the wick, which I'll show you in a moment, is to suck fuel up from this oddly shaped tank into this part of the stove so that the fuel can vaporize. How do we get it out of there? Honestly, what I like to do is I like to vise this up in my big machinist vise with some copper jaws to protect it and turn the whole tank. That's my preference. But if you don't have that, you again can take an adjustable crescent wrench, tighten it up around there, and if you have powerful hands like I do, because I have Popeye arms, you can remove this. You're going to want to turn it lefty-loosey, counterclockwise, like this direction, in order to loosen it. Before you do, you might want to take a note. Where is it sitting? I happen to notice that this one is actually a little tweaked around farther than it should be. Normally, the spindle opening lines up with the 1 on the tank of the 1, 2, 3. That's generally where it wants to be. It's important that you notice where it is and you make sure it's lining up with where it's going to end up in here. Well, actually, this one apparently is lining up okay, so I'm going to make a note of that. How do I make a note of that? Ha! I get myself a big magic marker. There it is. And I just go, that's where I got to line it up to. No problem. How do I deal with that later? Take a little solvent. It'll come off. Acetone works well. Lacquer thinner works well too. Next step. Let's undo this puppy. See if I can do it with my bare hands. So it's important that you make a lot of noise in order to make it work. It's not going to work. I'm not strong enough. Plus, I have coil all over my hands. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll set up my machinist vise, and I'll photo over there. So hang in there. Okay, welcome back. Here I got the machinist vise all set and ready to go. You notice I've got some sheet copper here. That protects the valve. And I've got it just gently clamped in there. And now I'm going to loosen it by turning the tank. And sure enough, not too hard to do. Loosen it, and it's pretty much plug and play here on after. I can just finish up the operation just like that. And watch what happens. Oh, look at that. We better stop and go back to the bench, and you'll finish seeing what happened there. Okay, so just a moment ago, I showed you how this worked. This is a little unusual. Usually, this wick will stay inside the vaporizer, but this time it just popped right out. Okay, but we can still pull this wick out. Take a look at that. Oh, look at all that wick. It's like Honey Badger. He don't care. This wick doesn't care. Look, it's inside the stove. What's it doing in there? Well, it's like sucking up the fuel through capillary action on the outside of the tank and bringing it to the part of the stove that's going to vaporize the fuel. That's what this purpose is. Now, my fingers are getting dirty, so I'm going to do a quick wipe of the old fingers. Let's take a look at this wick. Okay, let's take a look. What is it? Well, it's like inside there's like a piece of wire, and there's two halves. It's just fuzzy white stuff. And if your wick is really burnt, if it's really crudted up with fuel in this area, it cannot conduct fuel very well. Now this one is a little scorched, but I think it's okay. There's no deposits in here. So I'm going to probably go ahead and choose to clean this. If that doesn't work for you, you can always make a new one out of cotton mop strings from just an old cotton mop head. But at this point, we've got all our parts taken apart. Everything's looking good. Things are all taken apart. What more is there? Well, nothing more until we start dealing with how to put it all back together. Well, how to clean it first, and then how to put it back together. So let's do our cleaning operations next. Thanks for watching this part of the video. We'll have a second video on how to clean everything.